afternoon, everybody. There's one question that I need to get out of the way when I begin presentations like this, and it's created problems in the past. I'm just here to tell you, all right? So we're going to get it out of the way first. Can everybody see me? Is that, you got that? Okay, everybody can see me? Okay, we're good. Succession planning, exit planning, transition planning is a topic this broad. We are going to cover one little tiny sliver of that topic today, okay? Each one of the topics that we're going to cover here in the next couple minutes, 15 minutes, we could spend a half a day seminar talking about them. The topics we're going to cover are going to determine A, whether a prospective, sophisticated buyer is going to be interested in purchasing your business. B, it's going to be determining how much they want to pay for your business. Now, is anybody interested in either of those topics? Somebody wants to buy it and how much they want to pay? That's what we're going to cover here in the next 15 minutes. David had some observations on value. We're going to talk about value in the perspective of this discussion in a very, very practical way. Okay? We're going to talk about factors that enhance the value of your business in the eyes of a prospective buyer. So what matters here is what a prospective buyer is willing to show up at a closing table and either give you a certified check or send a wire transfer to your account. That's the definition of value that's going to be our point of reference here today, okay? Now, what are a few factors that we're not going to talk about, okay? Well, number one, again, from the perspective of a buyer who's going to show up at a closing table and give you a certified check, one thing they have no interest in is how much money you have invested in the business. Don't care about that. Number two, what they're not interested in, sorry for the wake-up call, they are not interested in how hard you've worked in the business and how much sweat and time you put into it. Doesn't matter. The third thing they're not interested in is what your brother-in-law thinks the business is worth. They're really not too interested in that either, okay? So with that in mind, the factors we're going to talk about here, all of you are from a variety of industries. This topic this presentation by its nature has to be pretty generic. So make sure you take the factors we're talking about here today, and they need to be applied to your particular industry. So with that being said, yes, you've got another accountant on the stage for the next 12 minutes or so. Here we go, okay? The number one factor in how a prospective buyer is going to look at the value of your business is cash flow, okay? There are three elements to cash flow that are going to be of significance here. Number one, is your cash flow stable? Number two, is it growing? And number three, is it sustainable? Now, from a growth factor, you see the slide on the left there where we've got a nice upward slope, and that nice historical upward slope is going to give a prospective buyer, you remember David mentioned about risk and how a buyer is approaching the mitigation of risk, okay? Stable earnings, stable historical earnings are going to provide a much less risky acquisition for a buyer than the slide on the right where you've got ups and downs and twists and turns. Okay, I'll just pause for a moment. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, good. All right. That's the stability of cash flow. Let's talk about growth, okay? Whether a sophisticated buyer is going to be interested in buying your business is going to be based largely on how they perceive future growth and cash flow, okay? Now, what they're actually going to pay you is more likely going to be based on historical results, okay? Now, David passed along to me a quote from moderately successful investor Warren Buffett and his observations on forecasts and predicting the future. And good Mr. Buffett said that forecasts tell you a lot about the people making the forecast, but they don't tell you very much about the future. Okay? So, put another way, I have friends in the banking industry who see forecasts all the time, and their running joke is, I've never seen a forecast that I couldn't like, right? You're not giving forecasts to your bank that show you're going to have big negative red numbers. So, the last issue is sustainability of your cash flow. In most acquisition situations, a buyer is going to go through a process that's generically referred to as a quality of earnings analysis. This analysis is an assessment by the prospective buyer of digging under the hood of the real drivers behind what creates stable and growing cash flow. So, for example, a couple of factors that would be looked at in a quality of earnings report would be the nature of your revenue streams, okay? Looking at whether your revenue streams are transactional, one-offs, or a subscription-based revenue stream, okay? That makes a huge difference in a buyer valuing a company. Another example would be something like how susceptible your product and service offerings are to commoditization, okay? So, cash flow, the number one issue, this is your ticket to the game, okay? If you don't pass muster with this factor, a buyer is likely not going to look very closely at the other factors we're going to talk about. At some point in the process, a buyer is going to take their assessment of your cash flow and apply some multiple to it to get a starting point for valuation. Golden nugget number one, cash flow.